Hey everyone, Gridiron Girl here with you. Just back from 5 days in Fort Lauderdale, back into overcast, cool Seattle, and I'm just so damn glad to be back here. I can't even tell you. It would appear that the way this is kind of breaking down these videos is that there is one episode where we're talking about some basics of the game and another episode where I'm giving you my opinion. So one guess as to which one this is. I did want to talk a little bit and give my opinion about Bobby Wagner for a couple of reasons. And maybe, who knows, maybe you might learn something from this as well. Bobby Wagner is my favorite player. I make no mistake about that. And he plays on the defense, which to me is what wins championships. And if you want to go toe to toe with me on why you think that's wrong, you can go right ahead. I don't care. But the fact of the matter is that I really believe in a very solid defense. And Seattle Seahawks have been to the Super Bowl, and they have had a very solid defense, and I think that had a lot to do with it. They've been to the Super Bowl twice, and they're going back again. And I wouldn't be surprised if this season we see a mini Legion of Boom forming. That said, let's get to Bobby. He is in the last season of a 3-year contract. 3 years is usually the standard, and he is wanting to make sure he protects his future. He signed right. I think he was drafted in 2012, and he signed with the Seahawks first. And the Seahawks has been his only team that he's played for. He's been very clear that he wants to stay here. This is his home, and he's certainly made a place here. He's delivered. He stepped up as captain of the team when Earl jumped ship last season, and he did an amazing job. He also had a pick six for the first time in his career last season, and I thought that was amazing. I think it was like 96 yards or something. Not something that you see very often, and not something that you've seen from Bobby. So is he worth money? Yes, he is. I put something up on Facebook where I said, pay the man. But I want to kind of back that up and also touch on some things that I think are a little bit unusual about this particular situation. Again, please do not talk to me about the amount of money football players get. I have no control about it. I think it's stupid to talk about it, so just don't even start. But I do want to talk about contracts, and because I think they are a very, very big part of what goes on in the NFL. So right now, Bobby is going into his third and final year of his current contract, which means that this is his last year with the Seahawks. The Seahawks are well aware of that, and they knew that this was coming. However, there are a couple of things that you need to know. First of all, Bobby is not holding out. He is not doing what Sean Lynch did in 2014. He's not doing what Earl did last season, and there's no contention going on with him. And I think that's very important. He's showing up at OTAs, the organized team activities. Those are voluntary. As a matter of fact, I don't think KJ was even at all of the OTAs, and Bobby has been. He's been there, and he's working with the young guys, which is exactly what a captain needs to do. He has fulfilled his contract. He's continuing to act in a professional manner, and I think that he wants to be taken seriously, and he's doing all of the right things to do it. That right there is a training video in and of itself. However, he has also mentioned, he mentioned in a press conference when Earl was holding out last season that he thought that players should be paid what they're worth. He didn't necessarily specify what that was for Earl. I don't think he needed to. But he also mentioned that he thought defensive players do not get paid enough in this league, and I would have to agree with that. He was very outspoken about that, and he's been very outspoken this season in comparing what he wants to the contract that C.J. Mosley just finalized with the Jets. C.J. Mosley has a 5-year, $85 million contract, which is roughly $17 million a year, a $7.5 million signing bonus with $51 million guaranteed. Now, that's what it looks like on paper. A couple of things you need to know. The $51 million includes an injury guarantee. So that means that if he is still on the roster actively 5 days or 7 days after the Super Bowl at the end of this season, then he does get that guarantee. If he's injured, that puts things in jeopardy. Okay, so there is a big chunk of that. So when you pull that injury guarantee out, that injury piece of it, he's only really closer to $37 or $38 million. The other thing that is really important is that, well, two things actually. The guy in the front office, the general manager of the Jets that actually did that deal with CJ Mosley, has been fired. So that, I think, is something that needs to be taken into consideration. Another thing that needs to be taken into consideration is that Bobby is acting as his own agent, which is fine. You want to eliminate the middleman. You want to make sure that nobody steals from you if, in fact, you've had a bad experience. Not all agents are bad, but I get it. The fact of the matter is, though, when you act as your own agent, it's kind of like acting as your own divorce attorney. Your emotions are very much involved, and you may or may not be able to make the kind of sound decisions and the sound negotiations that you need to. I think it's very important for Bobby to keep a cool head and keep his expectations at a realistic point. I listen to John Clayton, the professor. I really, really like his take on everything. And his deal is that you have to kind of go, you have to kind of have a balance. If you want a higher than average, you're going to have to go with a lower guarantee. If you want a higher guarantee, you have to go with a lower average. At the end of the day, it all has to balance out. I think the Seahawks will come to the table. I think the Seahawks definitely want to keep Bobby. I know we all do, but we have to be realistic about this. So if you're looking at $14 or $15 million a year, I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. If you're looking at $17 million a year, which is what CJ Mosley supposedly gets, I think you also have to look at that realistically. I'm hoping that the Seahawks will come to the table and some sort of middle ground, and I'm also hoping that Bobby will listen. So it'll be very interesting to see, but it's important to me to point out that this is not a contentious situation. This is also a very normal situation for any guy who is in his late 20s and he's coming up on the third year of a 3-year contract. And he is not putting the Seahawks in a corner. Back when Ronald Reagan was president, those of you who have studied history, he coined a phrase, "We will not negotiate with terrorists." And that phrase is one that I use very frequently with the Seahawks front office with regard to contract negotiations. If you put them in a corner, they will not deal with you. That's exactly what happened with Earl. That's what happened in a couple of other situations. And I would imagine it's probably part of what may have happened with Richard Sherman, but I'd have to dig into the details. Do not put the Seahawks front office in a corner because you will lose. But if you're willing to show up and you're willing to be professional and you're willing to talk about what you want, asking for what you want, then it gives them something that they can work with. So it's early stages, but I'm really, really hoping that we see something particularly unusual and really, really good so that the Seahawks and Bobby Wagner can continue to enjoy an amazing, amazing relationship for the next 3 years. In the meantime, I think that Bobby is doing exactly what he needs to do. He's protecting himself from injury by not going out for the OTAs, but he's showing up and he's using his skills to bring up the guys behind him. That's exactly what Doug Baldwin did, and I believe that's why Tyler Lockett had such a great season. That's exactly what I'm hoping he will continue to do, even though he's been released from the Seahawks. It's all about the older guys bringing up the younger guys, and that goes to character. Bobby has character, he has talent, he's got a lot of play in him. So that's the reason why I think we need to pay the man. This is Gridiron Girl. Thank you for listening. Thank you especially to the 5 fans and that golden retriever that I love so much. And I'll talk to you again soon.